Hello, I'm Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kovess Show, whether you're watching on YouTube, on Rumble, or one of the many podcast platforms. This is episode 184. I'm a fighter for freedom. I'm a fighter for truth, for health, for justice, and for the rule of law. I do that in a number of ways. I do that as Australasia's passion provocateur. I do that as CEO of an industrial hemp company. I do that as a supporter of integrative health practitioners and in a number of other ways. Daniel Andrews, the former Premier of Victoria, you've often heard me say the worst Premier in Victoria's entire history since it was founded in 1851, has been in the press this week as having set up 2 private companies. He resigned as Premier suddenly. So did all the other premiers who presided over the Draconian lockdowns that happened in all the states of Australia. These were all done allegedly to protect you. You know I reject that nonsense. They've all gone, these premiers. Why did they resign? I say these leaders who behave so contrary to law must be held to account regardless of whether they are in power or they have resigned. And I say this is an important thing for us to do so that the current people in power realise that they cannot ignore the rule of law and then resign and then expect not to be held to account for criminal behaviours, for outrageously incompetent behaviours, for failing to uphold the constitution of whatever state or country those political leaders are placed. If leaders of all descriptions are not held to account for bad behaviour, the bad behaviour will continue. The bad behaviour is on display for all of us to see at Davos over the past week. I say the world wants whistleblowers. WWW, a whole new meaning. Julian Assange is in custody. He's a whistleblower. Edward Snowden is a whistleblower. It's a dangerous process being a whistleblower. The government wants you to be scared of being a whistleblower. The government wants you to be scared of speaking up about bad behaviour. I say, stuff the government. I say, stuff businesses. I say, your principles and values are what should be determining your decision making. It is risky being a whistleblower in certain circumstances. It can be made less risky. I say to you that the ability of people like me to hold these leaders to account or lawyers to hold them to account will depend upon getting evidence. And whistleblowers have that evidence. I'm looking for the smoking gun in a whole range of circumstances. And I want you to rethink how you can play a role as a whistleblower without taking undue risks. I honour Julian Assange for his role. I honour Edward Snowden. I honour Bradley Manning. I honour all the whistleblowers who have spoken up courageously and have paid a big price. I too have paid a big price in a number of ways for my search for truth and justice and integrative health and freedom. Let me give you 5 practical examples of how simple and perhaps, and probably safe to be a whistleblower, but to still be of enormous value in the accountability process. That's what we're really talking about here. Holding people to account for their crimes, for their bad behavior, for their grossly incompetent behavior, for their fraudulent behavior, for their lies. Number one, let's take Daniel Andrews. I've talked about tracking his every movement, and I'm delighted that his activities are in the press. I want everybody to track his movement. I don't want any company to ever retain his services. He must be held to account. He is, I call him a liar. He committed perjury, a crime, when he appeared before the inquiry that was set up to inquire about deaths over the what period, over the last 4 years. He said he couldn't remember. He talked about creeping assumptions. I say lies, lies, lies. Andrews is the quintessential control freak. Everybody knows that. He knew precisely what was happening. There are people who are employed or are employed in the Victorian Public Service who have evidence that Daniel Andrews knew and therefore that he committed perjury. What it needs is, and Andrews is very, very cunning, very clever. What it needs is for people to be willing to speak up or to produce one piece of paper. And all these examples, it can often be one email that somebody has, some written evidence where the person says, yes, I knew that, and then they've publicly denied that they knew it. Second example, nurses in hospitals all around the world. The treatment of patients has been grossly improper and, I say, criminal, and I have evidence that it's criminal. We are seeking nurses who have memoranda from administrators of hospitals that show evidence of this improper criminal behaviour. This behaviour by hospitals has led to the manslaughter of patients in hospital. It led to the kidnapping of patients by hospitals. Hospitals made decisions based on financial reasons, not on the health of patients. Nurses know what happened. Example number 3. Local government employees, particularly in Australia, but right around the world. I'm appalled at the slackness of local council employees in getting plans of subdivision approved in terms of any sense of urgency. I'm appalled at the behaviour of local council employees in terms of the woke agenda, in terms of wasting taxpayers' money in not getting important things done that impact on people's lives, like the approval of plans of subdivision, in favour of spending time on 15-minute cities, on smart city programs, on all sorts of crap that's nothing to do with benefits for residents. And I say there are council employees who quietly shut up in councils. There's a wonderful organisation called My Place Australia that's shining a light on this behaviour, but local council employees who have evidence of this outrageous slackness or bad behaviour or bad decision-making or improper decision-making can shine a light on it by producing memoranda, by producing emails, by even making a phone call. Example number 4. Doctors who are attacked by medical regulatory authorities for being concerned about their patients' welfare rather than following some diktat of medical regulators. And you know what I'm talking about. Doctors have been suspended improperly for being concerned about their patients' welfare rather than following what government has told them to do. There are employees in those medical regulatory bodies who know how wrong it is, who will have internal information. One email can make all the difference to shine a light on this corruption in these regulatory bodies. And the fifth example is big business. There are big businesses that behave very badly, and big business benefited from the bad behaviour of governments and lockdowns. Pricewaterhouse, PwC in Australia, has behaved very badly, but it's just the tip of the iceberg of the improper use of internal knowledge given in confidence by government. A company called Worley, an Australian listed company, has had a major claim that it made dismissed in the courts in Uruguay because of the corruption, the corrupt behaviour of Worley executives. Big business behaves badly. Another way that companies behave badly is in terms of the woke agenda. In terms of Woolworths refusing to stock Australia Day materials, Australia Day products that commemorate Australia Day, because they don't want to upset whoever they don't want to upset. Employees in these big companies can see this bad behaviour, can see this corrupt behaviour, can see criminal behaviour. And what we need is, in all of these 5 examples, significant numbers of people shining a light on this behaviour by finding the smoking gun. And you can send it to me. The other place that you can send it is a whole range of wonderful new media that has arisen over the last 4 years as a consequence of the bad behaviour of governments. That's Rebel News, Topher Field, the Aussie Wire, that's Club Grubbery. There's wonderful, wonderful media that is now shining a light so that you don't have to rely on the mainstream media publicising. You send it to all the alternative media. Julie and I have subscribers to so many different media. You can send this material to me. I will publicise it. There are numerous ways to get these messages out there. Let's shine a light on criminal behaviour. Let's shine a light on bad behaviour. Let's shine a light on corrupt behaviour. We have to show these leaders that they will be held to account because they require average people. They consider themselves the elites. I call them the MEEs, the minority evil elites, particularly those who met at Davos at the World Economic Forum, an organisation with outrageously bad intent for you, encompassed by the concept of the Great Reset. These evil elites, they need ordinary human beings to shut up, to sell out their principles for money, for security. You see, that's the issue here. You say, I know bad things are happening, but I don't want to speak up because I don't want to impact on my income. And indeed, I know of many doctors who refuse to question what the government was telling them to do, what to do, because they said, quote, I have a mortgage to pay. Well, that's what I'm reminding you here. What are you going to stand for? What information do you have that should be brought into the public domain? What are the principles by which you're going to make this decision? Are you going to duck for cover for money and security and then let your children and grandchildren pay the price for this ongoing corruption, this bad behaviour, this loss of freedom, this loss of truth, this loss of justice? That's what we're dealing with. And Julian Assange and Edward Snowden and other whistleblowers have had the courage to do what they've done. I'm urging you to do what you see needs to be done, to tap into your spiritual resources to go, no, we need to hold these bastards to account. And they are bastards. Daniel Andrews is a bastard. And he's a criminal because I say he committed perjury when he said, "I don't remember." So, I'll give you some resources to think about what we do about the world wanting whistleblowers. WWW, not the World Wide Web, the world wants whistleblowers. Well, rather than a song this week, I'm recommending a movie to you, In the Shadow of Flexner. We'll put the links into the chat. It came out just this week. Flexner was a man who gave a report to John D. Rockefeller in 1910 that led to the destruction of homeopathic medicine in favor of pharmaceutical medicine. And this movie is all about, this is 6 medical practitioners who have, or health professionals who have come out to speak about the truth of how health care has been corrupted. It's available for hire at $9 US for 3 days, or you can buy it for $15 US. I recommend buying it to support the film producers. It's a great way to support film producers. In the Shadow of Flexner. My book this week is by Laura Brett. I know her personally. It's called Losing Liberty, Finding Freedom. It's very spiritual. It's based on Christian principles. It will inspire you at a deep spiritual level to tap into your courage, to tap into your passion for truth and ethics and justice and freedom. And you read these words from the Bible and it reminds you of the courage of people who have stood up for principles. And that's my spiritual tip as well. Focus on this book. And as you're reading it, think about the times when you've been courageous, because courage comes from your heart, from your soul. That's the etymology of the word courage, from the French word cœur, from the Latin cor, meaning heart. We're fearful of taking these steps, but are you willing to do the right thing? You tap into your courage. My health tip is for you, whenever you take a pharmaceutical medicine, is to read the inserts. Every pharmaceutical product has an insert. If you, particularly a prescription drug, look into those inserts, read them, learn to read those inserts about the downside of any particular drug that you're taking. If you have one for your children, read the inserts. There's always a consequence of taking pharmaceutical medications. There are benefits, but there are consequences. My quote this week is by Edward Snowden, a courageous whistleblower. He was talking about the President Obama, Barack Obama. Edward Snowden said this: "In the end, the Obama administration is not afraid of whistleblowers like me, Bradley Manning, or Thomas Drake. We are stateless, imprisoned, or powerless." So is Julian Assange, by the way. No, the Obama administration is afraid of you. And I say every government is afraid of you. It is afraid of an informed, angry public demanding the constitutional government it was promised. And it should be afraid. And that's what I'm saying. I want the rule of law. I want Australia's constitution. I want each nation's constitution properly applied by judges who stand up for the proper interpretation of that constitution, not corrupt or politicised judges, which is what has happened over the last 4 years to an extraordinary degree. And I've been over 50 years, I've been a qualified lawyer, an extraordinary degree. No, the Obama administration and every government is afraid of you. It's afraid of an informed, angry public demanding the constitutional government it was promised. That's why we need whistleblowers. That's why the world wants whistleblowers. And of course, whistleblowers are about truth. So I've got this cute little humour story. The priest says to young Daniel, "Do you always say your evening prayers before going to sleep?" And Daniel says the truth. No, my mother says them for me. Priest says, what does she say? Daniel, thank God you're in bed at last. The challenges of truth. So, take the steps to use today's big idea to deeply think about this whole challenge of speaking the truth about the harm that's being done to the society in which you live. And as you tap into your courage, into your spiritual principles, your values, you discover more about who you are, more about what you stand for, more about your self-awareness of understanding who you are and what sort of life you want to live and what sort of world you want to live in. Because you and I are responsible for this world that we live in. I invite you to subscribe to this show, either by podcast or Rumble or YouTube. Share it with your family and friends and work colleagues. Discover more about my executive coaching, the self-awareness and passion quest. I promise you, if you come on that journey with me, your life will be transformed. It's designed for C-suite executives, for lawyers, for dentists, for entrepreneurs. It will transform your life. My books, Passionate People Produce Passionate Performance, are available at my websites, charlescovest.com and covest.com. If you go to those websites, you can make a booking to have an exploratory conversation with me. Come and have that conversation. And now let's review a couple of key happenings over the course of the last week or that are coming up that might be relevant. My TNT radio program is on every Sunday night at 7 p.m, but they're all recorded. They're now not just radio, but video. And my guest on the 21st of January is Barry Green, an expert in regenerative agriculture or passionate about regenerative agriculture, a media host himself, runs Western Australian Tourist Radio, and we will talk about regenerative agriculture. We will talk about what it's like for people in the bush. The Australian Tennis Open is halfway through. Novak Djokovic is still into the fourth round. He's playing pretty well. He's warming up. It is wonderful to see a man who did stand for his principles over the last 4 years. You know what I'm talking about. And it's salutary that Mike Dixon, a reporter who criticised Novak for his principled stand, died suddenly while he was here in Melbourne. All these sudden deaths, you know. In fact, in yesterday's ocean swim at Portsea, a swimmer died of a heart attack. Now, there are people who die of heart attacks left, right and centre, of course, but I say the died suddenly syndrome, the excess deaths in this country deserve a mega inquiry, and it will happen. There will be a royal commission to hold leaders, former leaders, to account. It requires a royal commission to shine a light, as I'm asking you to find the smoking guns to hold these people to account. The other matter that's big news in Australia is a housing crisis. Governments make all these ridiculous prognostications about how many houses they're going to build. Why? Because they're allowing to come into Australia huge numbers of migrants, but there's nowhere for them to live. And then you've got these local councils that I was talking about earlier in the show, making it very difficult to enable people to live on properties. This is a ridiculous situation, shows the incompetence of the Australian government and state governments. But, you know, they don't care. And here's the big insight that I've learned over the last 40 years. The leaders of these government enterprises actually don't care about the average person. What they're only interested in my opinion, the vast majority, is their own benefit. Like Daniel Andrews, go off into the sunset, get your retirement benefits. Well, when we hold these leaders to account, when they're convicted of crimes committed while in office, they lose their retirement benefits. That's why holding them to account is so important. We'll save a lot of money by not paying them retirement benefits, and just understand that government is not your friend. Lastly, I'm appalled at how often ministers and representatives refuse to reply to correspondence from constituents. These people in government are your servants. They're not your masters. They're not my masters. And we need to be railing against their refusal to answer our proper requests, our proper correspondence. It's just an outrage. It makes me mad every time I think of it. How dare they ignore a letter that you write, that I write to them? They just ignore it. It's inconvenient for them to answer. No, they are our employees. They are our public servants. All right, plenty of passion from me this week. Passion is good. Passion is an energizer. If you're new to the show, stick around. I will now cover the foundational principles of the show and more background about me for newer viewers or listeners. Thanks for being with us. Have a great week. Go on the self-awareness journey. Discover more about yourself. Live with passion. Embrace the challenges. And we look forward to being back with you next week. Bye. And now, for viewers and listeners who want to know more about my background and what else I do with my life, as well as the foundational principles of the show, here we are. Since 1993, when I left my legal career, a career that I love, to become Australasia's passion provocateur, I have inspired and provoked and educated and motivated people all over the world to discover and pursue their passion. I have helped people via the books that I've written, via speeches at conferences, via in-depth team building programs, workshops, over 1, 2 or 3 days, or over 3 months, 6 months. And I've coached people of all ages, one-on-one, from small, medium and large enterprises, government enterprises, helping them to identify the often tiny changes that can make a massive difference. One of my core principles is that freedom is what makes us truly human. That's why one of the greatest threats that government imposes on you to force you to observe its laws is the threat of imprisonment, the loss of your freedom. Just think about that. Government says if you don't behave yourself, we're going to put you in jail. No, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose my freedom. That's a reminder to you of why freedom is so important. Without freedom, you and I are not much different to animals. If you were locked up in a cage for the rest of your life, how different would you be to an animal? This commitment to fighting for freedoms for all people is carried out by me primarily through 5 channels. Number 1, preserving the freedom to pursue your passion. Number 2, inspiring you to be able to be free through excellent health. Number 3, helping preserve freedom throughout the world through the expansion of industrial hemp, a magnificent agricultural crop, an almost miraculous crop that enables every community to thrive independently of government. In this way, the power of government to take away freedom is minimized. Number 4, fighting for freedom through legal strategies. So I do work as a legal strategy consultant, as an interface between clients and their lawyers. And number 5, as chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy and as a board member of the Australian Cartoon Museum, fighting for the freedom of thought and speech through uncensored comedy and humour, through avoiding political correctness in the comedic space. When you block freedom of speech, freedom of thought, that's the beginning of the end of your freedoms. The foundational principles for the Charles Covest Show are founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Your self-awareness added to your passion will guarantee that you are successful. And the best definition of success I have found in life is that success is the progressive realization of your worthy ideals. The progressive realization of your worthy ideals. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle and quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. I wear my red jacket for all my shows. Red is the colour of passion, so that when you see me on the YouTube version, it reminds you that when you see red in your life, you ask yourself the question, am I pursuing my passion? What am I passionate about? Am I still passionate about that? What might I newly be passionate about? Each week I explore one big idea that can change your life. And it's just one big idea because there's a chance you will remember it. If I give you too many ideas, then we get confused and we don't do anything. Clarity leads to power. Confusion kills passion. Each week I share simple and practical resources that you've heard me describe in the earlier part of the show. A spiritual tip, a health tip, lyrics of a song, a book, a quote, and of course humour. This show is not politically correct. I have no intention of being politically correct. And I love certain addictions, including my addiction to great coffee, my addiction to exercise, my addiction to reading, and my addiction to certain other unmentionable in public type behaviours. Who would know what they are? This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. So if you don't like discussion of spirituality, this show is not for you. I promise you that I don't include anything in this show that I don't consider to be true and that I have not found to be useful in the work that I've done over the past 28 years, but also over the past 50 years in business, as a lawyer, as a consultant advisor. I only want to share stuff with you that is of value to you. Finally, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact me at charles@covest.com. Again, thanks for watching and listening to my show. Bye.